Welcome back to Inside City Hall. My next guest is hoping to end Congressman Carolyn Maloney's 2 decades in Washington. Republican Nick iorio is challenging her in the 12th district, which includes parts of Manhattan's east side, as well as Astoria, Long Island City, and a small part of northern Brooklyn. Nick iorio, welcome to the program. Good to see you.
Errol, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is an interesting and sort of storied district. This was John Lindsay's district. This was Ed Koch's district. A lot of interesting politics on the east side of Manhattan. Give us the short version of what you think is wrong with the incumbent and why you think you are the answer.
Well, Errol, Washington is not just broken, Washington is corrupt. And Carolyn Maloney is part of the problem. She is the ultimate Washington insider. She's been in office since 1992, and she's introduced more bills in that period of time than any other member of Congress. And of all those bills, over 570 of them, she's only had 10 of them signed into law. And of those 10, 3 have been to rename buildings, and 1 was to give honorary veteran status to a service member. That's a terrible record. She is the worst member of Congress. And frankly, this is the greatest district in the greatest city in the United States, and we need a better member of Congress, and I think I'm that guy.
What's wrong with trying to get legislation passed? I mean, maybe she's a visionary. Maybe she's just ahead of the curve, right?
Well, the problem is that Carolyn Maloney typically will introduce a bill, she'll give a press conference, and then the bill will die on the House floor. It won't even get assigned to a committee. That's the typical path for a Carolyn Maloney piece of legislation. So whether you think the piece of legislation is good or bad, the fact is she does not follow through. Even when the Democrats control the House, she had the same percentage rate in terms of getting bills signed into law that she does now that the Republicans are in control. So whether her party's in office or not, she's just not effective, and that's what we need to change.
You don't have the typical background of a candidate for Congress or someone making their first run for public office. You were studying for a while to be a priest.
That's right.
Congress is a long way from the priesthood.
That's right. I was very proud of that time in the seminary. And what it showed me is that public service is something that we all need to participate in. And that's why I'm running. New York City is a place that I call my home now, and that I'll call my home for the rest of my life. And frankly, this campaign is about the future. Carolyn Maloney thinks of every election cycle from a 2-year perspective. I look at the city from a 30 to 40-year view. And people need to think about what the city will look like down the road as opposed to right now, and that's what this campaign's all about.
Well, on the other hand, you're not running for 30 or 40 years. You're asking the voters to give you a 2-year contract in Washington. What will you, as a freshman, be able to do that a 20-year incumbent can't do? Well,
right now, this campaign's about 3 issues. We have to fight the corruption in Washington by hiring a special prosecutor to investigate the IRS. We have to grow the economy by creating jobs, whether they be corporate, private sector jobs, or small business jobs like the ones that my parents had when I was younger. And we need to make sure we protect Israel. I spent 5 days in Israel back in August, and I can tell you right now that America's national security is tied into Israel's national security. And this president has been the worst on policy in the Middle East, worst on protecting Israel. And Carolyn Maloney has been silent. She does not push back on the president, and I'm calling for unconditional resupply of all Israeli munitions to make sure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself, and the United States continues to partner with Israel, because again, Israel's fight is our fight, and until we realize that, we're going to be in big trouble.
When you say Israel's fight is our fight, is there someone in American politics, you're talking about the president, who doesn't subscribe to that?
Well, I can tell you right now that when I met with members of the Knesset, and when I was in Israel meeting with members of the IDF, that they realize that if the United States does not get more involved in defending Israel, we're going to be in trouble. And I would say this, Carolyn Maloney, who represents one of the most important Jewish districts in the country, hasn't said a word at pushing back against the president's terrible foreign policy. John Kerry is running a State Department that has hurt our relationship with Israel, and President Obama is questioning the intentions and the motivations of Prime Minister Netanyahu. And frankly, I can tell you this right now, that if President Obama continues down this path, and if he's not challenged by members of his own party like Carolyn Maloney, we are going to be in a bad place from a national security standpoint.
Okay, we've got more to talk about, but just to be clear, you're saying the president should unconditionally support the Netanyahu government or unconditionally support whatever government happens to be there?
Oh, no, Errol, I'm saying that the president should take away the White House approval for munitions that are going to Israel. Right now, the president has done something that no other president has done before, and that is scrutinize every single bullet, every single gun, every single mortar that is going to Israel, whether or not it's been already approved. The DOD approves munitions going to Israel, and the president is now forcing and making sure that the White House also approves those munitions. That has never happened before. Whether it was President Nixon, who made sure that the Israelis had everything in the war with the Middle Eastern powers in the 70s, whether it was President Clinton, who was unconditionally supportive of Israel, every president has been an ally to Israel. I think this president right now is doing more to hurt our relationship with Israel than to help it, and Carolyn Maloney needs to push back, and so do the other Democrats.
Let me ask you this: you on your economic platform, you say that I guess your lead idea is to lower the corporate tax from 35% to 25%.
Absolutely.
Won't that just? I mean, if the problem is that corporations are shopping for lower tax rates by doing inversions and moving to Ireland or someplace like that, I mean that doesn't really solve the problem, right? I mean, if they can get a lower rate in Bangladesh or in Mexico or in Ireland, they're going to just go anyway, right?
That's right, and I can tell you from my time that I spent working as a contractor at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals that the two things that need to happen on corporate tax reform are these. We need to reduce the rate to 25%, and we need to go to a competitive territorial system, which allows an American multinational company to do business overseas and bring that money back home without getting taxed again. Right now, foreign corporations are taking advantage of our own tax system in the United States by building plants here, bringing that money back to the local municipality, whether it be in Europe or in Asia, and using that revenue for their own programs. We have the most out-of-date corporate tax system in the world. We have a 35% rate. We need to bring it to 25, and we have an international system which does not help foreign and American businesses to get jobs here in the United States. And I would say this: in addition to helping corporations, we need to help small businesses. Small businesses are the backbone of this country, and I can tell you as a fourth-generation baker and as someone whose mother worked for 20 years in her own job taking care of daycare students, we need to make sure that small businesses have low rent. We need to make sure that they have a chance to grow their respective businesses, hire more people, and right now we're not doing that. And Carolyn Maloney has not done one thing to make sure that small businesses can grow here in New York and the United States, and she sits on the Financial Services Committee. It's a wasted seat. Her seniority in Congress has done nothing to help New Yorkers get better jobs, and that's why we need to change this election.
Okay, needless to say, we'll be getting her point of view on all of these things, and she might differ with you on some of those points.
Sure.
In our last minute, I've got to ask you about social issues. You're pro-life. It says on your website you think Roe versus Wade should be overturned. I think everybody understands that issue. We'll just leave that to the voters. What I didn't understand is you said on same-sex marriage that you say, and I'm quoting, "I have reservations about the federal government defining marriage." What exactly does that mean? I mean, the Defense of Marriage Act is still there, although the key section, Section 3, was struck down by the Supreme Court, and that was the section that defines marriage. So I'm not sure kind of where you're going with that.
Well, before we touch on that, I want to go back to the pro-life, pro-choice issue. Carolyn Maloney is one of the most extreme members of her party. Not only is she for partial birth abortion, she voted against a ban of sex-selective abortions, meaning that she's in favor of women aborting women. Okay, this is a woman who did not even follow NARAL's guidance on this piece of legislation in 2012. She is the most extreme member, or one of the most extreme members of her party on abortion. With respect to marriage, the federal government needs to reserve or allow states to decide what marriage looks like. From my standpoint, New York has already taken that path of legalizing gay marriage. That's fine. That's their prerogative as a state, and I think that every state should have the opportunity to make that
What do you do with federal workers, right? I mean, that was the whole issue with Defense of Marriage Act, right? Is that if you're a federal worker or if you move from one state to another, all of a sudden, you've got either you're married or you're not, and you can't just change your status and everything that goes with it, including inheritance and all kinds of other issues every time you cross a state line. I mean, in this area, you cross state lines every day, right?
Well, I would say this, that the economic questions, which is what we're getting to, because benefits of certain marriages or benefits of certain social civil standings is what the conversation's really guided to. I would say if the federal government stopped giving deductions, stopped giving tax credits to married couples, then we'd really eliminate the conversation about who gets preferential treatment and who doesn't. Every time the tax code prefers one group over another, another group gets hurt. And so I think we should end any kind of stipulations that allow married couples to get a certain benefit that single people don't. There are more single people who are getting hurt by the tax code than married couples, and that's something we need to change.
Okay, that's going to be the last word. Good luck selling your program to the voters. We've got, I think, about 40 days left, and I don't know if we're on tap for any debates or anything like that, but we will see you out on the campaign trail, and we'll wish you the best of luck.
I can say, Errol, we're very much looking forward to debating Carolyn. She's someone who needs to be pushed back on, Everyone visit my website, nickfornewyork.com. Please vote on November 4th, however you do. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the campaign trail, Carolyn. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take a short break now. I'll be back in a minute with a preview of tomorrow night's program. Stay with us.